Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. Alrighty. Now let me see. I need a recording gallery so I can get both of us on here. And we are all set to go. Alrighty. Gordon Raphael, an honor to have you on the show. Welcome to the welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. How we doing?
Feeling okay.
Nice. And where are you located now? I think we were talking a few days ago, and for some reason I thought you were still in LA, but you say you're now in the UK, right?
Yeah, I live in rural northern England in a little tiny village.
Oh, yeah. How's that?
Well, I thought it would be cool because I can go all over the place from here,
Yeah.
but then of course everything kind of stays at home this year, and so it turns out being in a rural village is a great place for social isolation because there's not a lot of people walking around and you can still go outside quite frequently.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. What made you kind of like do the whole move thing over there?
Well, I was living for in Berlin, Germany for a long time, and me and my friends just thought, let's go somewhere where we can speak English a little more and just get a change of scenery. And this little town we're in just kind of fit the bill for it's culturally interesting and not too expensive to live here and like that.
That's perfect. Yeah, because I last time I checked on you was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I think you were in LA. Am I right? Or
Yeah, 4 or 5 years ago, I was working a lot in LA, so I was there like for a long periods of time for sure.
that's awesome. And then before that, I think you left New York, what, like uh early 2000s maybe, or
Yeah, exactly. I left New York. 9/11 happened, and I kind of felt like, do I really want to be in a basement recording right now? Maybe I'll go for a little trip. And yeah, I left the US in like 2002, and I haven't been back yet to like for full time living.
oh wow.
Um,
Oh,
been in,
but you've been back, but just like working, I'm guessing, what,
yeah,
as a
I go
producer?
back. I go back a lot. I go to Seattle. That's one of my hometowns, Seattle,
Hmm.
and I go there a lot in LA and New York.
Nice. That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
that's that's super dope. And mentioning Seattle, you're originally from Seattle, right? And
Well, I was born in New York, but I grew up and spent massive years in Seattle.
gotcha. So then when you moved back to New York, it was like what, early uh
Like
90s, right? Or I'm
late
sorry, late
ni-
90s.
late 90s because I was part of the little Seattle grunge movement thing. I got to cash in on that, and
Oh
then
yeah.
after that kind of fizzled out, I went to New York to keep the ball rolling.
That's interesting. So when you were living in Seattle, did you ever run into any big names, maybe such as Nirvana when they were coming out, or was that like
Yeah, well, I knew a lot of those big names when they were like late teenagers and early 20s before they got big, and so it was great seeing all that success and all that great music action that was going on in our town because it was pretty much a fishing village before that. Music wasn't a main thing. There was always great music, but no one ever got a chance to get out, and so in that time period everybody exploded out of there.
right? Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. This was a long time ago, but I heard an interview you did. It was like back in the 90s in Seattle when you just had to have long hair and a guitar and you could have like made it.
You're so cool. I was just gonna say that, and I thought maybe I'll wait. Yeah, yeah. Like literally, if you had long hair and a guitar, record label people would chase you down the street and go like, "Hey, man, do you want to go out to dinner and have a chat?" You know,
Do you think it was more like the image they could market out of? The
it
like
was like I guess the shock of what happened when Nirvana's Nevermind album went so big. Every label was like, we got to get if that's what's happening, we got to get another one of those. So they were hoping that by signing 100 bands, that one more that they got would be like the next Nirvana. You know?
right, because I always feel like big labels or maybe big corporate heads of the label, people that are in control. I always imagine them kind of like in a laboratory almost type of environment, kind of deciding, okay, what's gonna be the next grab, what's going to be the next hype. Let's look for that image and sell it. And that's why I was asking, like, maybe they were just marketing that look, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of, it's also kind of goes hand in hand with, like, if you're good, the music will stand out by on its own, right?
Yeah, but it also had a lot to do with the fact that, like, not only did the labels try to find, bands from Seattle to be in that scene with that look, but bands moved from all over the country to, Minnesota bands and, Chicago bands, and moved to Seattle to put on that flannel shirt and to be, to hopefully get caught up in that scene.
Right, right. Maybe the weather has something to do with it.
Oh, the weather has to do with the original sound for
Right.
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I mean, I did move to LA, in the right before the grunge movement. I was actually in LA. That's where I first saw Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains come through. It was in LA. I go, holy shit, this is what is happening up there, right?
Yeah,
But
right.
those bands, it just rained. In those days, it rained so much in Seattle that all people had to do, kids with creativity, is go in the basement, drink 40 ounces of beer, and like turn up the guitars. Like that's all. You couldn't go outside. It's just like, if there was sunshine in Seattle, like there was in LA, there would be no grunge movement. That's for sure.
Yeah, nicely put. And you yourself had significantly like a successful band coming out of Seattle, right?
Yeah,
You toured with
yeah.
them. Can you refresh my memory? You had, like, I forget the name. Sorry.
They're called Sky Cries Mary.
Right.
And we were very unusual because we had a guy and a girl singer, and we didn't do grunge music. We had like a psychedelic light show and a DJ and synthesizers. But for some reason, Seattle just loved us. Like we were really popular in our town at that time. And it was great because I got a record deal and I got to tour the US a bunch of times, and just like kind of a dream come true, really.
That is so cool. I feel like that's what makes a great producer, having, and even a band manager. I feel like it goes hand in hand too, because I feel like people that have uh like a sense of what's going on like musically, like as a musician, you can apply that knowledge as a producer or as a band manager or marketing agent or whatever. So that's awesome that you had that prior to focusing more on like producing, which is what you do
Yeah.
now, right? More. That's amazing. Um, that's great. Do you have any like cool, maybe any cool stories or like cities when you toured as a young artist from Seattle?
Well, I'll tell you this, maybe you don't know this, but um, in the last 10 years, I have a really great vibe with Argentina and South America, right?
South America is great.
The city of Buenos Aires. For some reason, I got asked down there to do a talk, and then bands kind of came to me and said, produce us. And bands came and said, play with us. And so I've been doing like tours in South America and in Argentina, tons of shows. It's like one of my best places in the world where people kind of get off on my vibe or my music. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I think I think I heard about that one. It was it the Plastics or something?
The Plastics was South Africa, actually.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. South
But
African.
I basically, when I go to Argentina, I go once a year usually, and I record like 10 bands at a time there and stay for a couple months and do tours and play shows, and it's just, a great love fest.
That is so amazing. Yeah, I think South America have a really strong appreciation for music. In
Yep.
the last maybe 2 years, I've noticed that Chile is at its most prominent years of like, oh, like we love everything. Come tour Chile. Like if you
Yeah.
look at like I think a lot of like maybe indie or not well known artists that can really get to Chile that easily. If you look in their comments, there's a lot of come to Chile or come to Brazil, like there's a
Yeah.
lot of South American fanatics out there. That's really cool to see because that's kind of like that's kind of what the internet.
Have you ever been to Chile?
I've never been to Chile. I have a Chilean friend, but I'm actually from Mexico, born and raised.
Yeah. Which part?
Puebla,
Oh,
which
wow.
is yeah, which is I think that's the source of why we celebrate Cinco de Mayo. We had the big battle with the French.
Okay.
So yeah, Puebla, which is maybe like an hour away from DF, which is
Okay.
the capital.
Okay.
But yeah, born and raised there. I think I moved here to the States when I was maybe 7.
Wow.
So I have like, some recollection of what happened, how I grew up, all that good stuff. And I think I've been back only twice, so I miss home sometimes.
I've recorded tons of bands in Mexico too. I really like it there. I have a really good time there.
Mexico City, Mexico people, they're really chill. They're like, we can get away with some stuff. Let's just have some fun. Let's make some art. Very artistic people. That's great.
Yeah.
That's dope, man. But yeah, I mean, how you been doing like in the recent like year, 2 years, like with this whole pandemic? Has the work diminished significantly? Like,
It's changed
how are you
completely.
staying afloat, if you don't mind me asking?
It's really only it's I mean, I was in a studio in Germany. I had a string of bands I was recording in Germany in March of last year. And I actually had to take my last artist and say, I'm really sorry, but I can't stay here. I got to get home because they're going to close the airports and close the borders. And I canceled my very first gig as a musician. I've never done it before. It felt really weird, but I had to get back home. So March 6th was like the last day I was in a studio with people, which is what I do all the time. It's my main thing.
It's your bread
And
and
so
butter.
it's been a real change, staying home. And luckily, people send me some songs to mix. I mean, I've been done a little bit here and there, but the work has completely changed. And I wasn't really cut out. I mean, I raised myself my whole life to go to shows, walk around cities, go to coffee shops, eat at restaurants, meet people, work, play concert. Everything involves people. And so this is like the first year of my life where I mostly stayed on my own and I don't know, it wasn't awful. It wasn't awful. It was kind of like, I've been running around and flying around and just always busy. And when you have to sit down, it's like, wow, it's kind of relaxing and can think about stuff and work on my own projects. I don't know, just it hasn't been awful. It's been quite productive, you know.
Yeah, I imagine. And I also, I guess maybe in your early career days, it was more word to word, or like you said, you go to a cafe, maybe an open mic, maybe some shows, and there's more of an extension, like an exchange of words, word to word, like in person. And
Yeah.
maybe the whole like internet machine networking wasn't like out yet, so maybe you're more used to like the whole, hey, let's just meet up in person, let's talk, how can I help you, how, what do you want? And like that, yeah, that must be really weird for you now, like just completely just in a bubble now, right? I mean, for everybody, not just.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess it's like for musicians and like I don't know, I'm a real public person. Like I really like just, walking on a city and seeing the people and I'm used to that. I kind of everything I studied and learned was to perform for people or to interact with people or to work with them on music. And so it's just a real shock to have it be like, okay, you're on your what would you do if nobody was there?
Right. And I'm so grateful for even like having this sort of platform, which is, I think this whole shutdown almost forced us to be creative, or maybe think outside the box, like what can we do to stay creative and maybe pass the time, but also along the way maybe learn something new. And how are you compensating for not being outdoors socializing like you used to? Is there something that you're doing different now to kind of fill that void?
Well, I can go outdoors. As I said, I'm in like there's rivers and hills and canals here. I
So
can walk
nature.
every day. I get a little, like fresh air and nature. That's been good. But yeah, coping with not, I mean, I've been doing lots of texting and Zoom calls and,
There you go.
and then just trying to work on my own things. I wrote a book.
Oh,
That was
nice.
the first thing I did. I thought I
Oh,
was going to write music. Okay, now I got all this time. I'll just write some. And then I wrote a song. It's like, yeah, I've written so many songs. It's like, I don't think it's going to turn me on like to do that. So I started writing a book.
that's so interesting, because I've always thought of you as a great storyteller. Every time I
Oh,
hear like an interview, and this has been like, I'm 27 now, and if I may, I add to this, is the first moment I thought, like, I remember kind of discovering who you were was from that is this picture.
Right.
album. And I was like, oh, right, okay, now I know who this is, who's the man behind the works. And so I remember looking at a lot of interviews like in high school. This was probably 10, 11 years ago maybe. And I was like, oh, this guy, this like some way of talking, like your way of talking is like very interesting when you tell a story, because a lot of people don't have it. Like I think I personally don't have that. But when you
Well,
talk, it's like, okay, I want to know what he's saying. So it's very cool to hear that you have a book.
yeah. Well, thanks a lot for looking at my stuff. I guess as a music fan, I was interested in a couple producers. Growing up, I was always interested in who produced the David Bowie albums or the Beatle albums, but it wasn't like producers didn't really occupy a huge place in my mind growing up. And so it's really cool that you checked out my stuff, and I'm not a rock star. I'm just a producer.
I think you definitely, I might be, maybe it's just, I think it's all like it all boils down to a point of view, but I genuinely think you revolutionized a movement that was there, but it just needed that push. And somehow you and the boys from the Strokes kind of came together and formulated this big giant push that it seemed like maybe an overnight thing, but now it's like a lot of cool bands generated from that sound. And I'm sure a lot of bands maybe come to you now saying, okay, look, we're trying to sound like from the past, but with the modern twist. You're like,
Yeah,
you're doing it all over again. And I think that's the same formula a lot of like cool artists nowadays want. It's like, we don't want the whole, like super produced sound, but we want
yeah,
it to be some sort of like illusion of real to real, where it's kind of raw and dirty, but clean. You can hear everything, it's audible. And I think that's what you brought. And this was like 20 years ago.
yep.
So I
20
think
years
we
ago.
yeah, I think that's definitely like you should be like up there somewhere, like maybe Rock Hall of Fame somewhere.
I get actually, to be honest, I get a lot of love to this day. When I go places or people write me, there's a lot of good feelings just from that record, and a couple other things. But it's really quite gratifying that something from 20 years ago, people are still wanting to talk about it or listen to it. That's really cool.
Oh, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Julian or either Julian or Albert were talking about making something that could last, or it could what would what did they say? Like looking back, it's like it's still good today or still relevant today. Something that could stay, what's that saying? The I forget, but it's very true, because now we're talking about it. It's something that's like it was good then, it's still good now. And I mean, that's fucking amazing.
Well, it means a lot to me because actually I listen to music, like especially during the lockdown, I listen to music like all day and all night. I just listen to records, records, records. And a lot of stuff I listen to is from like 60s, 70s, 80s, whether it's Miles Davis or the Beatles or Hendrix or the Doors, and I know what it's like to be able to connect with something, even though you've heard it a bunch of times. Every time you hear it, it still works. you know?
Yeah, no doubt. And like I feel extremely privileged to have met you, even if it's in this weird format. But it's never in a million years what I thought Gordon Raphael is gonna know like how I look and who I am. That is insane. And thanks to this like platform that maybe it's offered, it's amazing. Honestly, it's an honor to be talking to you one on one like this. So
Well,
thank
you
you,
were you were
thank
brave
you
enough.
again for your time.
You were brave enough to reach out, so why not do it?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. But let's go back into your book. I'm really interested in that. Like, where can we find it? Is it finished? Like, how are you
It's
promoting
finished.
it?
Yeah, it's finished, and I have an agent, a literary agent who's like pushing it into all the different publishing companies to see if anybody wants it. And to be honest, it hasn't been a quick sell. Like they didn't snatch it up. Like, oh, Gordon Raphael, let's publish his however many 300-page book. Wow, we can learn about microphones and about recording sessions. It's like, yeah, oh yeah, maybe, so it's slow going, but I think the book is cool, and there's a lot of stories from all types of different angles.
That's beautiful. I think so. It's the book is mainly about like the art of music, how to mic stuff, all these like
Well, it's kind of like it centers. I knew that if I have a few books I want to write, I knew that if I wrote a book that's centered around how I met the Strokes, how we recorded, and our time together, and then gave some scenarios leading up to how I got there and what happened after I left. It's kind of like that's the time period.
well,
Uh,
it's basically your story. Yeah.
it's a story of kind of like eight
Of
years.
Gordon Raphael.
Yeah, yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah, I particularly love the way you would mic things up in order to create some sort of natural delay. Like I think you
yeah.
put you explain it very elegantly because I can't repeat what you said, but I get what you're doing is like you have two microphones in a way that could feedback with each other and the amps that could it creates like a natural delay. But
Yeah,
that's scientific.
yeah, I didn't invent it. I mean, I kind of discovered it on my own, but then I read, okay, every time Jimmy Page was going to do a guitar solo, he'd have the mic, way far back so that it took a long time, like a delay. That way you don't have to use a delay. You already have one in the air, and it's a very rich and clear delay because it's time. It's just time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And are these books or this book that you release, is it now available like on Amazon? How do we get it?
Well, when it gets published, it'll be easy to find.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
I've just got to get through that one door of a publisher, and then it will be like an audio book. It'll be, paperback. It'll be hardback, whatever.
But the material is finished. You're done writing it.
Yeah, I finished it right
Oh,
in like in the middle of summer.
well, that's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that's great. I think one of my friends, she like self-published. I don't know if you ever consider self-publishing yourself.
If I can't get a huge advance so that I could buy a sports car,
Gotcha, gotcha.
I will definitely hit you up and find out how to self-publish.
You got you. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, because that is the smart way to doing it. I'm just thinking like
Well,
thinking small. You're Gordon Raphael. Come on.
I mean, why not? Let's see. I can
Yeah.
at least try.
Yeah, no, most definitely. That's dope. I'm glad. I look forward to that. And yeah, I'll make sure to buy a copy once it's out.
All right.
I'd love to learn more.
That means one sold, one guaranteed sale. I could tell the publisher that.
Yeah, you got me. You got me maybe like five of my friends.
Okay. See, it's
We'll
already
buy them.
expanding.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe you can like you should have a few that are like personally signed that
Yeah,
are like valued a little more. Still
sure.
buying that.
Okay.
We're doing that. Yeah, I've always wondered. Can we talk a little bit about like the Is This It album by The Strokes, if you don't mind?
If you want to know about it, I'll talk with you about it.
I have like maybe like a few questions that I've always wondered, and I never thought I would have the producer like here to talk to. Maybe first question is it true? Is the rumors true? Is the rumors true that Julian's vocals were recorded on a keyboard amp?
Well, the very first day they walked in my studio, where we were kind of coming up with the idea for the sound, it was a demo session. They just wanted to make 3 songs. And I had the idea from what they told me that maybe we should just try to do it live, And here's a keyboard amp. I had a keyboard amp because it was my studio and my band practiced there. So I had this really shitty PV keyboard amp, and I hooked Julian up, and they did the song one time. I think it was Modern Age or something. And Julian said, "Nah, you know what? I'm gonna wait till after they finish tracking to sing. I don't want to do it this way. I can't hear myself very well." But I had recorded one take of that amp, and I think that when we finished all the vocals, there was 1 or 2 lines on that one song that sounded better on the amp. So we kind of there is some evidence of that on one song on the EP they did before the album. Okay. And by the time the album came around, he just certainly did not sing on the practice amp. It was only one take of one song.
Ah, okay. So the rumors are true, but they don't spread like the yeah, because you're referencing that EP that was picked up by Rough Trade, right?
Exactly.
Gotcha, gotcha. That was like what Modern Age, Last Night, and there was like one other
Well,
song.
which one is it?
Oh, Strokes question. Fuck. Okay, maybe I'm not a
Barely
Strokes fan.
legal. Barely legal.
Barely legal. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful recordings. Okay, second question. Um, this is my personal question because the first question was kind of I've read all over the internet, but I've always been a huge fan of Aldous Huxley, and how much of is this reference Aldous Huxley Brave New World?
Well, I read Aldous Huxley, when I was in like high school. I was, really interested in that kind of stuff and him. And later in my life, I found out that one of my favorite bands, The Doors, was named after his book, The Doors of Perception. For me, as soon as I heard that they were working on a song called Soma, I thought of, okay, Aldous Huxley, maybe that's from him. Uh, so I thought that maybe that was the only reference that I know of. Maybe other people found other references.
Yeah, and that was my big question. Did well, actually, that brings me to maybe multiple questions, but maybe we'll stick to maybe one or two. But it was Julian the main source of the lyrical uh head behind the whole writing
From,
process?
from, from what I understand, he actually wrote all the music, everything.
Right.
Everything that you hear is something that he wrote, interpreted through his guys, in the Strokes.
Yeah, because from a lot of the lyrics from that like album, he referenced like Nina, which is a, a character of in the book, and there's the Soma, and I feel like that's like the two I can think of top of my head, but there's other clues in there that I've always wondered was like, did he like there's like maybe like two or three songs that I think like these were definitely written in inspiration from the book, and I was like, I wonder if
So cool. That's
maybe
so
you
cool.
maybe you know that. Um, but actually, fun fact, Aldous Huxley got inspired by William Blake. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, William Blake had a quote in one of his books. I think it was The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, right? Where
Okay.
he writes, if the doors of perception were cleansed,
All
man would
right.
see everything as it is, infinite. And
So
and
it
that's
comes
where
down even one step further.
yeah, exactly. And William Blake is
Awesome.
like is a big puzzle in its own domain. It's like, what the fuck is this guy even talking about? So I think for me personally, it took like a lot of times to reread his book because it's just so poetic and complex, and there's a lot of it's complex, but
It's
he
cool that
was
you did that. It's cool that you read. I didn't read. I mean, I've looked at his pictures, but man, reading that stuff makes my head spin.
yeah, no, for sure. It's a little it's too much sometimes. So uh I probably had to read it like in different passages because he has different passages in his book. But he was in or I guess Aldous Huxley was inspired by that poem and then later wrote Doors of Perception. And then it's a whole like daisy chain after that because it's like William Blake inspires Aldous Huxley inspires Jim
Sure.
Morrison,
Yeah.
which is it's mind blowing that it all is inspired from literature, which is
Yeah.
beautiful to think that literature has that sort of impact.
Yeah.
And
Well, if you want to open it more, that's just one example of a chain. Like imagine that just about everything cool is like chains upon chains upon. It's all like coming from the past, coming back again in a circle and developing. Like
right.
what you bring up is a really interesting point, and it's very widespread.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's crazy how this social networking of like roots that we don't see, but they're like out there in the another realm, and it's slowly but surely influencing other minds. And me coming from a younger generation talking to Gordon Raphael, which this is amazing. I'm still tripping out.
Cool.
And it's crazy how like literature can influence different things. And I mean, I guess if it weren't for William Blake and Aldous Huxley, maybe we wouldn't even be talking right now, which is crazy to think about, right? And like this whole like maybe self exploring self uh analogy of things. Have you ever had like any psychedelic experiences like that you are like okay to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I've had hundreds, like at least 100. You know, I was really into it. I don't take any substances anymore that are maybe chocolate and coffee, uh, you know, but I definitely went gung ho into psychedelics and had a lot of amazing uh, positive experiences and weird experiences. Yeah.
Do you have
Um,
any some like do you have some that kind of stand out to you? Like you're like, oh
yeah. Well,
shit, that was
my first one was really outstanding. Um, I was in high school. I was probably a junior in high school, and I think during my sophomore year, I bought a purple LSD capsule or something. It was like this purple tablet thing, um, and I lost it. Like I didn't want to take it. Like I bought it, but I was scared. Okay. And a year later, I was cleaning my closet out, and on the floor, I found this little purple thing, and okay, man, I'm gonna do it. And I popped it, and all my friends were gonna meet at a football game at our high school, and they were gonna go. We never watched the football game. We would just go in the woods and smoke pot and drink wine and stuff like that, right? And so I went to go see my friends, and we were standing around a circle under these trees in Seattle area. And I was talking to my friends, and suddenly this stuff started kicking in. And the first thing that happened was I couldn't figure out how to talk anymore. Like I
oh.
could not talk. I just didn't. I knew my friends were talking, but I didn't remember how to do it. So I
Mm.
just kind of like didn't want them to know. So I was just kind of like standing there, like smoking pot with them, and just like kind of nodding my head. But after a while, my thoughts were just going crazy. Like what happened was I realized that even though I couldn't talk, whatever question I could ask myself, I knew the answer to. And I was like
Mm.
tripping out that I just tapped into this place that knew the answer to every question that I ever wanted to ask about any topic. So
Wow.
I just waved bye to my friends, or I just slunk off and I started walking through the woods towards my house and just testing my knowledge. Like, who is God? Where is God? What are we for? You know, what is the truth in history? You know, what is the meaning of all these? And the answers would just come. And I was like, just okay, I can't talk anymore. No big deal, because now I got this new thing that I can do. Okay. So
Wow.
that was my first time on psychedelics.
That is
And
crazy.
yeah, the next morning I woke up like really gung-ho to try out my new power, and couldn't do it.
Right, right. I was just gonna say that because doesn't it suck when like everything comes to you and you understand like almost everything you could like stuff that you would never think to understand, but
Yeah.
then it kind of fades away and the knowledge fades away with it too. You're like, oh no, I almost had it.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that sounds like such a reoccurrence with psychedelics where like people almost feel I actually especially with like ayahuasca or like DMT where they feel like if I could just take this being or this tool or this thing that I'm seeing with me, it would change everything. And then once they come back, they're like, fuck, I was just so close to knowing and now
Yeah.
I don't know anything. Do you think there's a test, if anything, with that whole idea of like knowing anything and then being back to
Well,
square root
uh,
one or whatever? Square one.
let's see. I think that I don't remember which guru or meditation guy said it. Maybe Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I forget who said it, but they said that like all these drug states are kind of the natural birthright of being human and having a mind and a soul and a heart. You know, you will get there. Those are natural states. But taking a drug to achieve that, he said it's like prying the eyes of a baby open because you're in a hurry for it to see. Okay, that's a really cool thing I heard one time.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
awesome.
so it's like you learn really, you know, as a kid experimenting with drugs of any kind, practically you get caught in this trap where you got to have the drug to do the thing. You're like, I
Mm.
gotta have alcohol to relax and, you know, be cool with people. I gotta have marijuana to feel really trippy. Like it's kind of like the drug becomes a crutch, or like that's the only way I can do it. Very few people think that's a very interesting state of mind. I wonder how else I can achieve it without using a chemical. Like very
Right.
few people go on that journey of the question, you know?
That is very interesting. Yeah, definitely. Because it only makes you wonder, if I got here with this compound of whatever chemicals form this drug, is there an alternative to get
Yeah,
there? And a lot of
yeah,
people would argue, yes, like we could get there with meditation, or, different, like change. I don't know. I don't know because I'm not wise or anything. But I would think that with meditation, or maybe like healthy living, good food, cleanse your body. There's a lot of weird toxins with, I don't know, fast food, or alcohol even, you know, and there's ways like that. I think that, yeah, that's interesting. It reminds me of a story with I don't know if you're familiar with Ram Dass.
yeah,
I think
sure.
Ram
Be Here
Dass.
Now.
What's that?
Be Here Now, his great
Be
book.
here now, exactly. I think he reached out to one of the yogis in India. I forget his name, but the point of the story is like he got to the yogi, and then he gave him LSD, and he's like, "What is this?" And he took like one, and I think that nothing was happening. He gave him another one, and it's still nothing happened. And it's like, yeah, like the state, the mind state that you're describing, I'm always experiencing. I'm
Right,
experiencing life. Like, this
right,
doesn't alter my life in any way. And it was
yeah.
crazy, and it was a big revelation to him, because it's like, holy shit, these guys are not fucking around. Like, this guy is actually, it doesn't take effect because he's already there, which is crazy to think about. I don't know if yeah, it's crazy. That's what I read. I don't know.
Do you want to hear one more of my best
Sure,
psychedelic experiences?
please.
Okay. Well, when I was 18, I was in a really cool band in Seattle, you know, and in those days, it was so long ago that you had to play covers in bands. Like you couldn't play, you were not allowed to play in a club and play your own music, okay? And I had just gotten my first synthesizer that year, and I was kind of terrible at it. I couldn't figure it out. I had so many knobs and no computer memory, and I was really quite bad with it. And I wanted to learn it. I thought, man, I could have a future. If I could learn this machine and make really crazy sounds, that could be part of my future, you know?
Mm,
So I seriously was trying to learn it. And one night, we were playing at some university in the middle of Washington State at a place called Ellensburg, Central Washington University or something. And my whole band went to sleep in this hotel room. And I thought, I'm not going to go to sleep, man. And I dropped some acid, I think it was blotter acid, while everyone else was asleep and the room was dark. And I got my synthesizer out and I plugged it in and I put headphones on. And I couldn't see what I was doing, but I was just like moving the knobs and listening to the sounds in my head. And all of a sudden, there was like a sound of like a cat and wind, and all of a sudden it started talking to me. It was like this voice in my synth saying like, "Hey, dude, you want to know how I work? I'm going to show you how I work. I'm going to show you, you know." And it's like, and I could make these sounds. It just sounded like somebody talking to me and walking me through the idea. Okay,
wow.
and I swear to God, ever since that day, I can make any sound on that synthesizer that comes into my imagination. You know, I've demonstrated it for people millions of times. Like it's kind of one of my things. It's this special synthesizer. It's like right over here, this
Oh,
one,
nice.
and
Wow.
it's like it's so cool because with the knob, you can start off making like a wind sound, and then all of a sudden, like turn it into a rocket ship, and then have it go into like these really deep basses, and then these super high whistles. Like you can morph from one sound to the other with no breaks. It's not digital; it's all analog. And
Wow.
so I could just like I just learned that night how to channel that instrument, and that
That's
stayed with me.
that's so cool.
Yeah,
That is so cool. Yeah, there's definitely some things you learn from these experiences that are like, will stick with you forever.
yeah.
It's really just amazing. Um, but you know, I've always wondered, and I think it's always like beautiful to think about the endless possibilities that could have went right or could have went wrong. As you point out earlier in your career, when you moved back to New York from Seattle, you are low on cash. You don't know what your next move is gonna be, and like, you're like, dang, like I don't really want to pick up a job at a grocery store. Like, I need to make money somehow. So you go, and network at shows, and you pick up artists that you wanted to record, or they were willing to record with you. And so eventually you end up in a cool, like, you end up full time. But
Right.
have you ever thought about, like, what if Gordon Raphael was bagging groceries right now?
Hey, what if I didn't go to New York? Because actually, I was in a band in Seattle with this really cool singer, and she wanted to go to New York. And I had already been to New York before. I already tried living in New York before that, and I fucked up big time. And it was miserable.
Wait, how'd you fucked up?
I got involved with drugs, like really heavy drugs. Like all my friends from Seattle moved to New York to make it with their rock and roll, and wound up like coming back to go to rehab or staying there and going crazy or something. And
Mhm.
I thought these people are so stupid because everyone's done it. I'm not going to do that. And I did it just the same as them. So when my bandmate Anna Mercedes told me like we're gonna go to New York, man, Seattle's not happening, I thought there's no way I'm going back, man. I just I had such a bad time that I can't do it. And I thought I want to stay with our band. I want to keep our music going. Okay, I'll do it. So I came very close not to going back to New York, and then Lord knows what I would do now. I'd be probably not doing what I'm doing now, I think.
Wow.
And
Is
so it
there
was.
was there like a pivotal moment where you realized that's exactly where I diverted to the right path, or maybe the path that you're on now? Do you have that?
No, I think probably the pivotal moment was when I messed up in New York and got strung out on drugs, and my family had an intervention for me and sent me to rehab.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want to go to rehab. The only reason I was going to rehab is because my girlfriend at the time was going to go to rehab. And if she was going to run away, I was going to run away. It was like I just went for her. I was really in denial about my drugs.
Wow. So they
And
had to, right, sorry, go ahead.
at a certain point, being in rehab had a real big effect on me because I was in there with like heavy metal kids who were way younger than me that were strung out on something, and like women librarians in their 50s that were strung out on prescription pills, and businessmen who drank too much. And I thought, whoa, I thought being having all these problems was what made me special. But if he's got the same thing and she's doing the same thing and they all behave the same way, it's not, there must be something else that makes me special. It's not just because I take more drugs than everybody else. And
Right.
so at this certain moment, I had the choice to get out of rehab and go back to taking drugs, or kind of think about what I learned and try a different way. And I think it was the moment that I gave up like 2 decades of drug use and just said, no, I'm not going to do it. If I'm sad, I'm not going to get wasted. I'm going to cry.
Mm.
I'm going to feel my feeling. I think that gave me the intuition to go with the wind the right way at more moments than not. And I think that's kind of what led me into Sky Cries Mary, where I got a record deal and I had that success, and I had a place to live and my own food and a $20 bill in my pocket every day. Like, this is a big change from where I came from. You
Wow.
know? And then, okay, go to New York, try to work on my music, and oh, I meet the Strokes. Cool. you know?
Wow. That is amazing. That is really a inspiring story, because I feel like a lot of people would just get stuck in that kind of way of living. But it almost sounds like you had some cool people that you could depend on, such as your parents and
Yeah.
people that cared about you. That's dope. That's really cool, man. I'm glad that you're here telling a different story.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, 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 no problem. Do you remember like the first encounter you had with like the Strokes?
Well, yeah. Um, my band with that girl, Anna Mercedes, we were working in my studio in New York, and I was looking for a booking agent to get us better shows.
Mm.
And my bass player at the time said, "We know this girl. She knows this girl named Carrie Black, who hosts club nights up and down in the Lower East Side and East Village." And she came to my studio and heard our band and said, "Cool, I think I can work with you. Why don't you come to my party tomorrow? It's at Luna Lounge. We got 2 bands playing, and in fact, Gordon, one of the bands might want a producer." So I went to go see her party to see if she'd be a good booking agent for us. And two bands played, and the Strokes played. And I had a little business card, and I went up to them and said, "You can come to my studio and make demos. You know, you'll be, you know, I do it cheap, and I'll do 3-day, 3-song deal for you." And they came. That's how I met them.
I heard a cool thing you said. I don't know if it's true. You just kind of like just being funny, but is it true that maybe one of the members from the Strokes came and just wanted to check if the walls were black enough or dark enough or something like that?
No, it's
But
something like that.
I guess what you meant to say, I guess this is the way I interpreted it, is like they came to scout out the place to see it was cool enough to record there.
Yeah, it's very important, this little thing, because that girl Anna Mercedes, she helped me make this studio, and it was incredible. Like, it was in the basement in the coolest area of New York, and the walls are red and purple glitter, and we had like fake leopard skin baffles with silver wood. It was like really like this basementy, artistic, creative vibe. And the next day after I gave my number to Albert, he came to the studio just to see what it was like. And he sat with me and he said, "Man, it's so cool here." And he said, "You wouldn't believe how boring and how lifeless many studios are in this city, because they're trying to cater to like television advertisements and executives." That
Mm,
was what was going on. You know, music, it wasn't really paying the bills for studios. So they were trying to get a cat food commercial. And so everything was really like, you know, really super tech and super expensive and super corporate looking. And
right.
they had tried to record in those kind of environments, and they found it was like totally against their vibe. And so when they saw my place with the lamps and the amps and the torn up stuff everywhere, and you know, they just said, this is cool. This, we can work here. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Um, Now, I guess another short questions if it's true. True effect. You tell
Okay.
me. Well, I guess it all depends if you're there too, because I don't know if you remember the band Come On.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I guess I saw like an interview with them saying that in one of the Stroke sets, I think it was not at the Luna Lounge, but at the DNA Lounge,
Uh-huh.
where if Julian was like singing and like I guess he picked up the mic stand and threw it across the stage or something. And
Okay.
then the PA guy was like, "Hey, if you do that one more time, we're gonna cut you out." And then sure enough, Jillian picked it up and did it again, and then they got kicked out. And I think they're banned from the DNA Lounge forever
Okay.
now.
Okay.
Is that
So
accurate?
my first question is, like, Come On was playing with the Strokes the night I saw them,
Right. Oh,
and
right.
and they were the band I liked. Like, the Strokes weren't my
Oh,
favorite band that night. But
interesting.
you're the only person I've ever met that actually knows anything, even mentioned. I thought you were gonna quote one of my stories back to me. You read an interview with Come On. I gotta find that. Maybe is it in the Meet Me in the Bathroom book, or where is that? Where is it? Where did you find that?
Wait, where did I find that?
Yeah, where'd you find it? Come
Oh
On.
man, I have no idea. I've been following you. Anything that has to do with the Strokes, I feel like everything that contributed to the sound and to the movement and to the evolution of, maybe if I may say, like the whole change of perception of music back in those days.
Yeah.
Anything that's is anything remotely attached to that, I want to learn, because um I was a musician back when I was younger, and I wanted to know everything about everything that I liked. So I got
Wow.
obsessed. I got obsessed with it, and in a way that it was like, I guess, healthy and also not healthy, because I was so hungry for knowledge and learning what made something that I thought was great,
Mhm.
what made them great, and in return I gather so much knowledge that I unfortunately I can't pinpoint to where I heard that from, but I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it was from maybe like an article or a video of some sort. But I do clearly remember saying, oh, I remember now. I remember it was
No way.
uh it was this New York Stories documentary you did.
Oh, wow.
But that was, dude, that was early 2000s, like
I
2002
remember
maybe.
that. I think I was in that. I was in that video.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's where I got it from because I think the guy from Come On was there, which I think they changed their name later, right?
I got to find out because I mean I thought they were fantastic, and I was really sad. I was sad that they never called me.
Uh, isn't that crazy how that happened? Wow,
Yeah.
that's insane. But yeah, I think from some of the documentaries, maybe I don't know.
Uh,
But yeah, that's what I heard. Is that accurate though? Like Julian being crazy on stage. How were the Strokes like in the early age? Because they were like what 19, somewhere 19, somewhere 20, somewhere
yeah,
21.
yeah, and they did wild stuff. They did rock and roll stuff. They did a lot of experimenting in the rock and roll genre. Nothing
Unheard
beyond
of.
nothing that kind of hadn't been done before in a
Right.
way. But they tested the limits, and they certainly didn't like people telling them what to do or putting rules on them. That's for sure. They were not good
Yeah.
with rules.
How possible, or maybe how do you see yourself maybe working with them on a different album, maybe in the near future? Is that even in the realm of
I
possibility?
don't know. I don't know. Every now and then, when I see Julian, like which I do every few years, just for like go to a show or meet him in town or something,
Mm-hmm.
he says like, "Hey man, I'd really like to record with you. Maybe a Void single or something. Like this. There's sometimes talk of working together, but I am not holding my breath. Shall we say?
Sure.
Yeah.
Um, would you ever work with like hip hop artists, or is it all
Yeah.
mainly like
Oh yeah. I'm really. I think I came home from a tour in 2018 in South America, and I was just used to being really creative and really busy, and I was kind of like, oh, what am I gonna do? I gotta check out and see what's going on in the world of music, and I just kind of went down some rabbit holes, and I found the most amazing like hip hop stuff, like probably stuff that had even been around for many years, but I was just discovering it for the first time. And for me, the music was produced in the most creative way. Like it took over from the creative rock and roll sound. The music of what I've been listening to in hip hop is produced in a way that I don't even know how they do it. I'd love to be part of it. I'd love to do something, but these young producers with their FL Studio and just like making these beats, they call it cooking up. They don't even call it writing music anymore. It's cooking up, and a beat means a song now. It doesn't
right?
just mean a drum track, and an 808 is not an electronic drum machine. It's a particular bass sound. They have their whole language, and they're so good. I really like that Post Malone song called Rockstar. Do you know that one?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
When I hear that on good speakers, like my mixing speakers, and hear the low end of the bass, how low it goes, and how incredible of a singer he is. And I really like this guy Absol. Do you know who Absol is?
Absol. No, I do not.
Absol. He's one of the guys from the TDE Top Dog Entertainment roster, which is the ones that have Kendrick Lamar and Schoolboy Q and all this stuff. And Absol is like a genius poet, and he's a really great producer. And I've really, in the last couple of years, I've really been into XXX Tentacion and
Oh yeah,
Lil Peep.
little.
Like for me, the production on that music is as interesting as anything I've ever heard before. It's like, how in the hell do they do that? It's so
Right.
good. Yeah.
It is good. It is some good stuff. Yeah. You're promoting some speakers not too long ago, right? Like some speakers.
Yeah,
Those
I got an
speakers.
endorsement from a speaker company a few years ago, and they gave me some to try out. But I'm going to be telling you that it made my album that I mixed on it not as good as I wished it was.
Okay.
I got some better speakers now. I got some better speakers now from the guy who invented those other speakers. Like he branched off
Mm.
from the company, and I'm using these speakers called Head, HEDD,
Ah,
and
okay.
Head Type 20s. And they're really good for mixing. Like when I mix on that, people don't send it back to me to, hey man, could you make the bass? They like it. It really works.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to keep you up because I know you're like, well, it's
It's
probably
not
nine.
that late. It's only like 9 p.m.
Okay,
But
okay, cool.
I gotta
Is there
say, I'm a real big fan of speakers. Like I like speakers that just kick ass. Like blow
Yeah.
your brains out. You know, the top end is just like perfectly shiny, and the low end makes your stomach feel like someone just threw a football at you really hard. You know,
Yeah, and how are you recording now? Because I know you said like FL Studios. Is there what I guess what DAW? Is that what it is? What DAW
yeah,
or what
FL
software?
Studios is like a foreign language to me. It's like I spent so much time learning Pro Tools, you
Oh,
know,
sure.
to record bands. I still think probably Pro Tools is much better software to record a band. You know, Pro Tools is for like when you have 19 microphones, you know, 10 on the drums, 2 on the guitar amps, 1 for the singer, 1 for the trombone, and you just, okay, play your song, and you push the button. Like Pro Tools is like the tank. It just
What
takes it all in.
it does. Yeah.
But
What kind of
FL
soft
FL Studios is like when you want to get that thing that makes those loops, and when you want to like roast beat and half speed it, and at the same time regular speed it, and you know it's a language that I don't know.
right, those distorted 808s, so the boom, it just
Yeah,
drops.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. What kind of software were you using with the strokes? If
Well, this is a real nerdy question. Okay,
I'm nerdy.
now in the turn of the century, the beginning of the 21st century, um, computers were just coming out for studio use. Like studios were like not using the tape recorder anymore. The tape recorder took so much money to keep running, and the tape cost money. It's like, hey, Pro Tools is sounding cool, all right, but Pro Tools couldn't do MIDI sequencing, and there were still a lot of electronic musicians. So as a producer, I needed to use a software called Logic, and
Nice.
Logic at that time was a German software. It was from, I don't remember what city, but it's from Germany, and it was a miracle because you could record audio on it and record MIDI on it at the same time. And if you used Pro Tools back in those days, you had to open a separate software that was like for MIDI, and then use your Pro Tools for your audio, and then a third software that connected them together. It was really
Mm.
clunky and cumbersome and shitty. So on the other
Interesting.
hand, Pro Tools made these cards that went inside, these PCI cards that go inside your computer, that made it really low latency. So we had Pro Tools cards in the computer and a Pro Tools converter, but Logic was talking to it. So we
Mm.
recorded everything on Logic software using Pro Tools hardware in Apple computers. That's the nerdy shit.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
Yeah,
But there was that's awesome. Thank you for answering that question.
yeah, no problem. I
Because
like
I
it.
think a lot of people are gonna be interested in that. People that are even more nerdy than you and I. uh,
Oh,
but you know, I gotta say there was definitely a significant change from the EP to the actual first record, which was "Is This It?" I'm
yeah.
wondering, logistics wise, and maybe going more in depth in what really happened and what really contributed to that change of sound. Staying true to the sound they recorded with you in the EP, but also having a much cleaner and overall more warm and beautiful sound that you created with Is This It? Was there a lot of contributions maybe with money from the record label where you picked up more gear, or were you still fucking with the same gear you recorded the EP with, just took more time to clean it out or made it sound better?
I borrowed a little bit of extra gear. When we made the EP, I only had 8 channels of conversion, so I only had 8 microphones to work with. 3 on the drums, you know, 1 on each guitar, 1 on the bass, 1 in the room, like a real stripped down setup. But even still, when I got the extra gear, I only used like 11 channels instead of, you know, 8 to 11. So 3 more channels were used on the album. But the big thing that changed was, as you said, time. Um, we had 7 weeks to do the album, which for me was a long time. I don't think I ever worked on an album for 7 weeks. Meant some bands work on an album for 3 years, and especially in the 70s, you know, people just took years in the studio to make an album. But the band was just meticulous. You know, they wanted every note perfect. They wanted to play it and play it and play it until it was like clock tight, you know? So, and then when they mixed it, they wanted to make sure, like, if that note on the bass is a little bit quieter than the one before it, hey, Gordon, make it the same volume. So you don't want anything to be, you know, to be not thought about. So, and the cool thing about the Strokes that probably no one would realize, and they probably even forgot, but because they talk about it like they were drunk and they forgot everything. They don't know
Right.
how they did it.
Why?
But I,
Okay.
they
Why are
weren't.
they? Why are they like that? Why can't they just express themselves? They don't want to just release anything that could potentially expose themselves to who they really are. Give us the secrets. Why are you so?
You're brilliant. You really are brilliant. That's a whole nother question. Let me answer that one second, because that's one of my favorite topics.
Go for it.
Is how they represent themselves verbally in the or in public.
They're in contract with each other somehow.
So let's see. Yeah, it's just that everybody in that band was paying so much attention to everything. And so like when Fab, the drummer, was listening, he wasn't just listening to the drums. He was listening to the two guitars and the vocals, and you know, listening, is my friend Julian really singing it the way that he normally does? And you know, it was so much input from those guys. It was almost like I was in this chair working as hard as I could, and then I had 5 people and 6, including their guru, JP Bowersock. So I had like 6 voices saying, hey, turn this up, make that louder, put that over here, put more high end on this. Hey man, I made a mistake here. You know, it's like, it was incredible. For 7 weeks, I had these guys like hounding my ears off on every detail. And that's what you hear on that first album. Like every detail just being scrutinized and really observed and made sure it was as good as they possibly could do it. Okay, so that's that. And then you say, like, why can't they give a straight answer? You know, why do they talk that way in public? And
Why
I
do they?
don't know. I don't know. I mean, I like to think of Julian, to me, is a really smart guy. Like he came up with all those parts. He's like, for me, he's like a genius. But to me, it seems like when he goes in public to talk, maybe it's
Shuts
because
down.
he says an idea, but then maybe his mind immediately puts up 4 better ideas that he could have said
That
instead.
that's a
And
theory.
so he then takes back, he spends time with the interview taking back what he just said. So you know, please don't listen to what I just said. It's not that. It could be this or it could be that. I don't know which one. Actually, yeah, sorry. I don't want to talk about it. You know, it's like,
Right.
and it's
Right.
been that way from the beginning. I mean, it's hardly ever been different. It's not something that
Really? That
it,
that
I
is
mean,
that is that is some serious commitment to if it were a character they were trying to portray, it would be hard to keep up. I think that's just really them, and I think it almost makes them aliens because they're so damn put together.
yeah,
Let's go back to how they were when they were younger. I mean,
uh-huh,
even fashionably, like they looked great. I
yeah,
mean, they had jokes amongst each other where they said, "We have an agent that puts her clothes together." Like they
uh-huh,
looked great. They sounded amazing. It was just like a match made in heaven for music.
yeah. And here's something that people don't really think about too. The internet just learned how to promote music when Is This It was being recorded. Okay, the internet was not something that promoted music. It was like something that you did emails if you're lucky to keep your connection, and there was porn websites, and there was, you know, very little. Really, the internet was not really together. And suddenly, Is This It is able to be promoted word, you know, like computer to computer to computer to like whatever. They had the benefit of like being the first band hyped on the internet. Okay, and at the same time they had the old school magazines touring. They had the old school label behind them, so they had like 2 worlds, the brand new world and the old world, in a convergence that it may never happen again. I mean, that kind of
Right.
luck of timing was amazing.
Right. It was that merge of the old world and the new world. And I think it very much happened the same way it happened for Jimi Hendrix,
Oh,
where
wow.
they almost had to go outside of the US and this whole bubble of visual stimulation and Britney Spears and the new hip hop hit, but they had to go outside of this bubble for, in quote unquote, Julian, for these bozos to take any attention to us. So it was crazy because I understood what happened when he said that. It was like, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jimmy because the reason I picked up guitar is Jimmy and
Yeah, me too.
Metallica. So I knew that Jimmy got famous outside of the US, like in the UK, and had a lot of help from the Animals and the Beatles and Eric Clapton, all these coverage on Jimi Hendrix, but it was all mainly done outside of the US. Now, when he came back, he came a legendary, and a lot of people thought he was British, but he wasn't. So I
Right.
think that's what happened. The same effect happened with the Strokes, where they
Mhm,
went out of the New York scene
mhm.
and they were put in a place where there was more attention to the music and made USA want it because USA always wants what's best. They're like, oh, let me get this because it's gonna benefit us in the end. I don't know what happens, but the main thing is the same effect took place as Jimi Hendrix, where they needed to go outside of the US to be noticed, come back as an idol.
Right. I gotta tell you something.
Tell me.
What you just mentioned is one of the big themes in my book because I'm talking about Jimi Hendrix because I'm from Seattle and Hendrix is my number one guy.
Nice.
And that guy, Hendrix, was going around the US in circles and nobody, he was like a sideman, you know, he was a poorly paid musician getting
Right.
kicked off of every tour because he was like, you know, outshining the singer, you know, he's get out of here, man. You're like dancing better than me. No way. This kind of stuff. And
Right.
right before he went to England to become a star, he wore a baby bottle, plastic baby bottle around his neck with methamphetamine mixed with water because it gave him energy because he couldn't afford food. You know, he's like,
Wow.
just have a little sip of this like speed water that'll get me going, man.
No
So
way.
he was suffering in the United States, and some guy saw him, you know, Chaz Chandler, thanks to I
The
forget,
girl,
yeah, the Mick Jagger's girlfriend, Marianne Faithfull.
ex-girlfriend or girlfriend? Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Marianne
At the time.
Faithfull, maybe. I don't know who it was. Maybe Marianne Faithfull saw Jimmy in a basement and brought Chaz Chandler down, and Chaz took him to England. And like the very next night he got there, he's like, hey, he goes to a concert with Cream playing, and he's like,
Right.
hey, Eric, man. Sorry to bug you, but can this guy get up? And like the whole Cream's like, who would dare get on the stage? Who would
Right.
have nerve? Let's see this guy that would even think he could do this.
Right.
And he plays Killing Floor, which Clapton can't figure out because it's too fast. And that's it, you know, that was it. He was legend the next day.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. But that's I think that same effect happened for the Strokes. And like, do you think like I don't know. Like, do you believe like in destiny? You feel like this happened because we needed to experience it? Or like was
It
it just
happened because Jimmy wanted it to happen. No, Jimmy set that up.
who knows? No, yeah, that's great. No, it's crazy. I honestly feel very honored to have you on the show, man. Like I don't know how much I could. I think a lot of people are like, "Hey, quit sucking Gordon's dick or whatever." But man, I love you, man. I have always considered you up there, you know. And it's crazy that we get to talk. I had another question for you.
Okay.
Um, I I absolutely love how the drums in Hard to Explain sound. Give me everything you got.
I got a lot. I got a chapter in my book about it, but
Oh, so we gotta
I'll give you,
wait.
I'll give you,
Give me a preview,
okay, I'll give you the nuts and bolts.
please.
We
Because let's
recorded,
for the people that don't understand, it's it's a sound that sounds like a drum machine, but it's not, and it's made maybe in a basement. Also, your basement had a name. What was the name of your basement?
Transporter Realm Studio, German
Transporter
name.
Realm Studios.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I love this. I love the name. Um, how was those drums? Um, how do they sound like they sound on is or on Hard to Explain? Because I love the sound. I've
Yeah.
tried it myself. I've tried it
Okay.
from the Reddit realm of like, oh, you got to put your mic in the corner and all this. I
Uh,
don't get it. So
okay.
tell me.
So, most of the stroke stuff was done like all the instruments playing live in the room, and it sounds like a rock and roll band that's very tight, playing really cool music. Well, after we recorded a few of those for the album, Julian took me aside and he said, "Dude, I have a bit of a problem. What can we do?" And I said, "What is it?" He said, "I wrote this song on drum machine, and I love the way the drum machine sounds on it. I just love it. But I don't want Fab to be there sitting off of a song on his very first album he's on, and he's not on a song. What the fuck are we gonna do?" And I just, oh man, that's a no-brainer, because all through the '90s I was working on industrial music,
That's
so
right.
using drum machines and blowing them out and making them sound weird. Like I was recording that shit all through the '90s, even in early 2000. I was still into that sound. So I said, I've used so many drum machines. I mean, I had a DMX, I had access to 808 and 909s,
Hmm.
made millions of songs with those drum machines. And I know what those things sound like inside out, and I can make any drum sound like a drum machine. Just show me your beat, what you want to do, and I'll figure it out. And he showed me the beat. He took me to his house and showed me the drum machine parts. I said, okay, got it. Went back to the studio, and I said, okay, we have to record it in a new way, because when you press the snare drum on a drum machine, you don't hear part of the kick drum in there. You don't hear guitar noise in there. You don't hear rooms. You just hear do, 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 right? So how am I going to do that? I'm going to record the drums by themselves. And on
Oh.
those songs, Fab only had 3 drums he's working on. He's working on kick, hi-hat, and snare. So what I did, I had a brilliant revelation. I said, we're going to set your drum kit as far apart from each other as they can go, not the normal, tight, comfortable way. You still got to be able to play your beat perfectly, but your hi-hat's going to be like over, oh no, it's this hand. Your hi-hat's going to be as far as you can reach. Your snare drum's going to be as far as you can
Are you
reach.
are you left-handed?
No, I'm not. I'm
Oh,
not.
okay.
I'm not. But I'm probably backwards in my
Oh,
camera view.
right, right.
Yeah. So he was basically playing like a starfish. The hi-hat was really far away from the snare, so that no snare was going to go on that mic, and no hi-hat was going to go on the snare, and no thing was going to go on the kick. It was like all separated physically. And then I close mic'd it. I only had those like impact, impact, impact on 3 drums. And then I just used plugins to distort and gate. So it just sounded really artificial, you know? So that's the basic way. I use industrial music techniques and the space separation just to record the 3 drums and make them sound. And, he played to a click track, so it sounded really perfect.
Hmm.
And like that.
You're a mad genius for that, man.
Oh, thanks. They were
That
really happy. They were really happy about it. They
oh
loved
man,
the sound.
I
Yeah.
don't think it's a beautiful sound that it's uh it's crazy. It's crazy because you recorded like early 2000s and a lot of the drum machines weren't that popular and like
Right.
it was beautiful. I've always argued about that song 'cause it's like it sounds like it's not the Strokes like a Stroke song, but it sounds like a Stroke song. And the only variable that is kind of opt out is the drums, but the drums are the thing that make it cool. So you're like you can't ignore it, and it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing, man. Um, I don't know. Final question, and then we can wrap it up. Is that okay?
Fine and dandy.
Thank you so much, Gordon, for your time. I can't believe we talked. This is amazing. And yeah, stop sucking your dick now. Okay, how true is the whole scenario when the whole producing thing wasn't going well for the guys once they were out of the US, and then you had to meet up with Julian at a restaurant or whatever for dinner, and he was like, Man, fuck you, man. Like, if you would have told us you were the guy, we would have went with you. But fuck you, and he walked away. How accurate is that?
Um, I'm gonna have to say you got to read my book. I have I have a I have a quote by quote of that story, but I'll just give you the overview.
Sure.
Um, they got signed in Rough Trade in England, and Rough Trade wanted him to use a star producer who had a track record of zillions of records sold, a very cool producer. Like the records he made were epic, and I had a lot of respect for those records. And he told me that if I told him I was a better producer than that guy, then I could have the job
Right.
producing the First Strokes album.
Yeah.
And I thought, dude, I've never sold a record, not one,
You're
zero.
so nice, man. You're so
Gordon
nice.
Raphael, zero records sold. That guy, 5 million of every record since the 80s.
Uh-huh.
I'm supposed to tell you I'm better than that? Come on, we made a cool sound, but I'm not going to tell you I'm a better producer than this legend. That's it.
And that's Gordon Raphael in summary. You're a brilliant, genius, humble guy, and I love you for that. And thank you so much for being part of the show. Is there any bands you want to give a shout out to that you've worked with we should check out?
How about if I send you a small list and you can put links somewhere in your description?
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for your time, Raphael. I honestly, this was more than I ever expected. I love everything you've done. I love your work, and please keep it up. You're a young dude at heart, and you're still very much, you got this spark in you. Maybe someday we can work together. I don't know, but
Okay.
I love this. Keep it up. Thank you so much for your time, my dude.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. Have a good
Okay.
night.
You too. Bye.
Cheers. Later.
Thanks again for listening, and I hope you guys enjoy this podcast with Gordon Raphael. I'll leave some links in the description. If you're interested in finding more about Gordon Raphael and what he's been up to in the past year, a lot of cool links to a lot of the bands he's been working with. So check it out. You might find your next favorite band. All right, till next time.